Fall River City Council meeting will now be called to order, Madam Clerk.
Sorry. Councilors Kadim?
Here.
Dion? Here. Kilby?
Here.
La Liberty LeBeau? Here. Lee?
Here.
Peckham?
Here.
Pelletier?
Here.
Pereira? Here. President Ponte?
Here, pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived by those present, and are deemed to knowledge and permissible. First item on our agenda this evening is citizens' input. First person to sign up to speak present is Colin Dias, 560 Ray Street. Regarding citizens' input, censorship.
Good afternoon, Council President, members of the City Council. I come before you today because I'm disappointed, not only as a proud resident of this community, but as an American, that this council, along with this leadership, is engaging in ways to censor or limit citizens' input of the residents of our community. At the last meeting, right after I gave my lonely, humble opinion on the financial affairs of our city, my opinion alone, a few councilors did not like my input, and the council leadership falsely attributed my input as slander. Let's just be honest with ourselves. There was no slander in my input whatsoever. There were just people who did not like what I said because it indeed ruffled some feathers. And they would throw away the First Amendment in order for that to happen. One thing's for sure, I spoke the truth at the last meeting. For several minutes, instead of discussing the important issues facing our community and ways we can improve the quality of life of those affected by the pandemic, or the mounting cost of the transfer of solid waste in our community, we heard several horrible ideas to limit citizens' input, attempts to restrict input of concerned city residents. We heard ideas of limiting what people can discuss as citizens' input. We heard ideas of removing citizens' input from being read out loud during the meeting by the clerk's office. Instead of working on ways to expand citizens' input, we want to lower our connection with the community and shut the doors to public participation. Now, the most outrageous and appalling move this council has made is that the council leadership will now, and I quote, scratch out the verbiage you don't like. I heard that 10 times. I watched the meeting 10 times, and I was shocked and appalled to hear that statement said. That was at the last meeting. The council leadership will now, quote unquote, omit parts or total citizens' input that the council leadership does not agree with. This city council, or any body, absolutely has no right to censor or refuse citizens' input in the opinions of those they serve. There was no slander whatsoever. People have the right to give their opinion on the direction of our city without fear of censorship. And this move by the council and its leadership is illegal and goes against the First Amendment of the Constitution. There is countless case law that sets up our city for liability if it continues to censor the opinions of those it does not agree with, and as a proud resident of Fall River, I will not stand for it. Thank you.
Madam Clerk. Written communication.
Hello, Fall River City Council. My name is Hank Poitras. I wish to write to this council in support of my good friend Colin Dias and the First Amendment rights of freedom of speech in a public forum. No public body should ever infringe on the rights of any person who wants to voice their displeasure with government officials. I hope this never, ever happens again. Also, this public body should look into ways to expand citizen participation during public comment, not limit it. Hank Poitras is a resident of 34 Downing Street in Fall River.
Where?
34 Downing Street in Fall River. Next, we have Jeffrey Gaudreau, 229 Palmer Street, Fall River. Dear City Council members, this is my first time speaking on behalf of myself and those who are watching. I would like to make a statement. When I found out that you would consider cutting back on citizens' input, I found it to be wrong and unnecessary, even though sometimes we, the citizens and taxpayers, have made concern of our issues and we like to speak in front of you. That is the purpose of our government. You may not like what people have to say to certain individuals, but that is what they're being paid for. If they're not doing the job, we have to call them out sometimes. But cutting back to 3 minutes or only to discuss on certain subjects is not right, and it is unconstitutional. Let's not forget a few years ago, you stopped telling people to clap. thinking it was disrespectful and a distraction, which in my opinion, it was never a distraction. I know we're dealing in a difficult time, but please don't take away the very thing we asked for. The next is from Hannah Levin. She does live in Lakeville, so we would need a
Motion to waive the rules?
Motion to waive the rules.
Made by
Second.
Counselor Peckham,
Second.
seconded by Counselor Lee. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Hannah Levin is at 35 Pilgrim Road, Lakeville, Mass. Hello, Fall River City Council. Of course, we don't ever want to see hate speech or slander being read during citizens' input. However, the speech made by my friend Colin Dias at the last meeting was clear and articulate and only respectfully gave his opinion on city government. There was no slander. Let's not take away citizens' right to critique the government. And please don't take away citizens' input. And also, please do not censor any citizens' input which is not hate speech or slander. Represent your constituents and show more transparency. And lastly, we have Marcy Yitkin of 624 Mohawk Drive. First, let me say it is an honor to be on the Park Board. We have worked extremely hard getting the park and cemetery up and on track with Mass General Law and city ordinance. Just a quick update. Joe Schulenberg and I have not resigned. According to Mass General Law, Chapter 45, Section 2, we are still board members of the Park Board. Mass General Law 45, Section 2 is clearly written to protect the board members from political retaliation, nepotism, and/or self-dealing, which is unfortunately happening now. Sadly, the night that appointments were voted on the council, conveniently did not receive our legal opinion, so the council could make a legal and informative vote. Joe and I am hoping that the council will follow Mass General Law 45, Section 2. In the meantime, any decisions, contracts, or approvals of the present board may be in question as to their vitality. I think she means validity. But it's just me. And that's all we have.
Thank you. Just want to remind the community that nobody indicated that we're going to scale back citizens' input. I don't know where that came from. Secondly, let me just read the rules that have been adopted by this city council since 1983, again adopted in 2012, and then again August 15th, 2017. Citizens' input, 3-minute time limit for each resident. Subject to be addressed matters concerning city government. Address shall be limited to that particular matter. Address must always remain within the bounds of decorum. Person will be allowed to deliver his or her address without interruption. After the address, the members of the city council may ask pertinent questions of the person who may respond if he or she so desires. The president shall determine whether the subject proposed to be discussed is a legitimate issue, subject to appeal and decision of the council, or the president may request the council make such determination. Citizens' input shall not exceed 30 minutes. If a resident is present at a meeting, must sign in the city clerk at the given time. In addition to that, the top of it also indicates that residents with disabilities who are unable to attend a meeting shall be allowed to forward their comments via email or regular mail, with their communication be read during citizens' input time as if the person was present at the meeting. I made the exception, and the council made the exception, pre-COVID, that we were going to allow written communications to come forward. We will continue to allow that, but now that we are open to the public, there may or may not be a time in the future that we go back to attending citizens' input in person. And the council has every right to make that decision as we go forward. We've allowed the written communication to continue. I'll allow it to continue due to COVID. But as we get out of COVID in the foreseeable future, whenever that is, I'm hopeful that we can start seeing people back to our chambers and delivering their citizens' input address to the council live instead of seeing written communication. With that said, next item on our agenda this evening is the Committee on Finance convene with the administration to discuss city-owned assets for the use of advertising. Floor is yours.
Good evening.
Good
Thank you,
evening.
Council President, and good evening, everyone. What I brought with me this evening was a print, I guess I'll call it a print, that I found up in the administration's office that indicates the one and only billboard that was approved. So I know you heard me talk about the billboards and not being involved in the process. I did go through the file cabinets. There were a number of them, I believe 9, that were, and here these include the other 3, some of which would have been double-sided that were not approved, if you're interested in seeing them. But this particular one is the one on the corner of Market and South Main Street as it's identified in the proposal that was made to the state. That is the only one that has been approved, as I know it, and as I could find in any of the records that are being maintained. The others were all denied, as they related to being too close to the water line. So a number of them were water department, and I can show you those as well if you're interested in them. They were on Route 24, and then there was one also on Brayton Avenue, I believe, or on the extension of Brayton Avenue that was also denied by the Office of Outdoor Advertising, the State Office of Outdoor Advertising. What I can tell you about this one is it appears through Capital Associations, which is the company that was involved in the process in terms of the presentation to the Department of Outdoor Advertising. The annual rental to the city would have been $53,000. This particular billboard that was approved is not one, or it's not a location where the administration, the mayor and the administration has any desire of erecting. So that's what I can tell you about the billboard project that existed back in 2017. I don't know if anyone has any questions that I can help them with.
Counselor who sponsored the resolution, Counselor in seat 2, Counselor Dion.
The 53,000, is that would that be per billboard or in its entirety?
It would be for this particular billboard. I believe a couple of them that were on Route 24 would have earned a little bit more in the way of revenue.
I find it interesting. To me, the billboard that was approved would be the one I'd be least favorable of. So how do the waterways impact the billboards? Do we know what was their, what was the reasoning with that?
Yes, certainly. Let me see, I found one letter that I thought was interesting. If you just give me 2 seconds. These electronic billboards would ruin the public's right to the natural, scenic, historic, and aesthetic qualities, which was why they were denied in terms of the North Watuppa Pond in violation of Article 97.
Okay. Now, don't we have billboards on Route 24 now?
I don't believe so, not down that far, no, not by the pond, no.
Not by the pond? Because I know
So
there's
if-
a car dealership billboard
South.
further south,
I
yeah.
think you were talking north, right?
Right, yes.
Just one quick question. So my recollection is it was coming off 195 onto 24 after White's, that exit, right?
Yeah, that
That's
would
what was
help.
proposed?
That's correct, Counselor. I only have one easel that they brought down for me, so if you just give me 2 seconds here. So, that is 24. And this would have been a double-sided one, I believe, as well as this one. So these were
Whoops,
both-
upside down.
Thumbs upside down.
Minor detail.
I like your new do, by the way.
Please?
I like your new hairdo, by the way.
Thank you, Counselor.
You're welcome.
So these would have been both on 24, so they were, in terms of Article 97, they would have been too close to the North Watuppa Pond. So these were the two. And then the third one, which I believe was also a double-sided one, was at the Brayton Avenue, Easton Avenue, on-ramp, and this is the one I believe the prior city administrator appealed but got denied. Because this one, I believe, also was denied as it relates to Article 97 and being too close to the waterways. I'm sorry.
It's okay, I've seen them all.
Okay. So that's what I was able to locate for you in terms of the status of the billboard project. As you can see, that is certainly a location that no one seems to have much of an interest in, but that is the only one that was approved.
Now, we do have property, that's city-owned property, that billboards that wouldn't necessarily be the digital billboards could be erected on, yes, no?
Again,
I mean, we have other private properties that, I mean, we aren't lacking for billboards in the city of Fall River.
We all agree, and, you know, we certainly had a meeting, you're correct, in the mayor's office, and that is definitely true. There are a number of billboards that have been erected within the city. I have not done the research in terms of the process to attempt to obtain permitting on other sites. Back in 2017, it appears that the city had an RFP number 16-12, that had companies bid on these billboards and the ability to erect the billboards, and assisted the city during that time in terms of their location. I mean, certainly, if that's the desire of this council, we can certainly present to the mayor that the process can be started over. We do have a license and the one single permit. So we annually renew the license. It's, I believe, $1,000, so we've kept the license. But in terms of the permitting for the sites, we would potentially need to prepare an RFP and rebid it and see if we have any companies that are interested necessarily in working with the city on billboards and the potential sites.
I realize that there are communities and states that are making movements to eliminate billboards at this point. My contention would be, until Fall River moved in that direction, as long as there are private properties with billboards and where it would be beneficial in terms of revenue, my contention would be to move forward with something. If you're looking at $50,000 a year in revenue per billboard, even if we only had 6, would be $300,000 in additional revenue. And as I've stated before, I'm not one who is necessarily going to turn their head to additional revenues. Again, if we, eventually make a move that nobody has billboards, then, and we decide to try to be aesthetically more pleasing, that would be a different issue. Now, what about other assets, other city assets? We did have a couple of discussions about where do you draw the line? Do you allow people to advertise on city trucks? Do you allow people to advertise on railings, et cetera?
Yes, so certainly, Counselor, and as you know, when I read the resolution, I wasn't sure that you were in fact talking about billboards or other assets that the city does own. Certainly, we have not pursued that avenue. Similar to the sort of buses, there is a way to advertise on a moving vehicle. Would it be a city truck, if you will? As you know, we outsource our trash collection, and so it would not be on the easy trucks. But there could possibly be, but is that something that this council and or the administration would be really interested in? Certainly, I'm not going to speak for Mr. Furlan, but I doubt very much he'd be interested in advertising on his water tanks or some of his assets, if you will. So we're really limited to our city vehicles, and do we really want to sell advertisement on our city vehicles?
Now, originally, the president was the one who introduced a resolution and started down the path of the billboards. So with that, I'd like to get his opinion, and if he's willing.
Thank you. Yeah,
With
so
that, I yield.
back in 2000, however, 16, 17, whatever it was, when I filed the resolution, the purpose was, we were looking at that point, eliminating the $10 trash fee. We were looking at eliminating the purple bags. We were trying to find alternative ways to find revenues at no cost to the taxpayer. By assets, I intended on meaning all assets. If the city owns assets such as park benches that are used in other communities, I'm talking about kiosk stations, which I know may be owned by CERTA, because CERTA already uses them for, which are on our sidewalks. Assets all in general. And, you know, to your comment, Mrs. Sahadi, with respect to Mr. Ferland probably not being okay with utilizing some of the assets on water tanks for advertising, while that might not be aesthetically pleasing, and I agree, it might be an opportunity to see if there's any land, and I know Councilor in Seat 8 speaks about land that the water department has in their possession that needs to be looked at and repurposed. So maybe there is some land that can be carved out that we could use to erect a billboard of sorts that will be able to reduce the water rates going into the, in the future on property that is owned by the water department. So these are conversations, I know these are just starting out again with a new administration and everything, but I am taking the position, and I know Councilor in Seat 2 spoke about this as well in our briefing, that we need to get the ball rolling on this now. And I know you're limited with help and resources upstairs, but maybe if the mayor could have one of his aides in the office work on looking at alternative ways and work on a project, I'm sure their time will allow him to assign this to one of his aides, and when you hire a city administrator, they can just pick it up. But this is something that is not going to cost us money and make us money. And it should be the priority of everybody to see if we can move something like this forward. Even if it's just one billboard that could reduce water rates by $5,000 a year, it makes it makes a little bit of a difference.
Certainly, I can bring it back to the mayor and we can speak about moving the project forward.
Councilor in Seat 8, Councilor Pereira.
Well, I'm going to tell you, having been here, for the time I've been here, we've talked about putting advertisement on city assets, like park benches, like at the softball fields, all the fields throughout the parks, possibly at the high school and the middle schools. And there was a crowd of people that came in here to tell us, no, they didn't want those advertisements, and it would make the city look blighted with all these billboards. They talked about, you know, not having them for alcohol, not having them for tobacco, no advertisement of that kind, but people were upset. So if you're gonna look at something, at where you're gonna put any kind of advertisement, I would say you need to have a public hearing, because I know of land that abuts the highway that is not near any of our waterways, which you could possibly put a billboard there, but you're gonna have neighbors there, or the person that lives there that's been paying taxes for this particular piece of property to now have this huge billboard in front of them. You're gonna have to do public hearings too. Yeah, sure, we all wanna make money, but quite frankly, if for one billboard you're gonna get $50,000, is it worth it? 50,000, if you're gonna get, you know, $1 million, $2 million, okay. But for $50,000, are you gonna upset the citizens? What else can we do? And there are places that I know that there are places that we can put billboards that would not be in the way. The only one that I ever wanted to see was one close to City Hall that was run by computer, that you could put what activities are happening in the city to get people to see the positives of Fall River. Give our top 10 graduates, put their names and what colleges they're going through, they'd be going to. Put positive things. We are a diverse community. Show all of the different diversities we have. Show the different festivals we have. You know, bring tourism into the city. I think they had the Paul Revere one on 195. I don't know if that's there anymore, if Paul Revere ran off. Remember? There was one there?
Yeah, it's gone.
That's gone. He ran away. But I liked that because it told me what was happening in New Bedford. I thought that was a good idea. I wonder why that left.
I don't know, council.
I'm gonna have to,
Point of information.
I'll have to call John Mitchell and find out why it left.
I was told that it fell down. It was built by the Volk High School in New Bedford.
It fell?
Yeah, that's what I was told. Because I had asked, I know one of the kids that worked on the project, and I asked him what happened to it, and he said it had fallen down.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I'm all for making money, but honestly, $50,000, I don't care where you're gonna put it, where the assets are. But my strong suggestion would be you do public hearings on this to make sure that people are okay with it, because there was a lot of controversy. I think my colleague to my right will remember the controversy that came. I believe it was Lenny Kaplan that had come in with wanting to put them. And people liked Lenny and would do whatever Lenny wanted, so for them not to want to do this, just cautioning the council. With that, I yield, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor, and I agree, just so everybody's not confused. So last time we ran this through under the prior administration, there were public hearings that took place here in this chamber, as well as the state also conducting their own specific public hearings regarding this. What I think we need to charge the administration and the mayor to focus on is to try to find some possible, revenue opportunities for us, and this is one, and we'll find out. I do remember, and I don't know if it was a fake meeting or not, but I remember being in a meeting with the former mayor, and we had a long discussion with the city administrator about these billboards bringing in millions of dollars a year in revenue. I don't really recall, what led to that or where those numbers came from, but a consultant was retained, I believe, at one point to provide us with some kind of a financial analysis. So it's back to the brainstorming stage and developing opportunities. Councilor in seat 5.
I recall, again, I was not on the council yet, but I recall additional revenue was talked about when the purple bags was being discussed of being taken off the, taken out of the city, basically. I remember billboards being one of the conversations for additional revenue at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that, and I remember that's where I believe the figures were coming up of certain millions of dollars, but that never came through. And as a matter of fact, I know that that's what re-sparked the conversation here earlier. I brought up the billboard. I just wanted to see if there was an update on the situation. I know Councilor Dion also brought it up as well. So I think that's what brought us here, was the fact that we were losing revenue from the purple bags. And I believe also at the time the former mayor was talking about rainwater tax being discussed as well. And again, I recall the billboard being brought up as part of, not all of it, but part of a revenue source that would be able to supplement one or two of those things. I yield.
Councilor in seat 7, Councilor Pelletier.
Thank you. I'm not a fan of billboards, but you talk about the ones you have right now, and my colleague talks about some of the signs that says, don't smoke, don't drink, whatever the case may be. Coming in from Tiverton, towards the left, you got a big, big sign there for cannabis, So in that area, you got a lot of billboards. I really think that the city has enough. But if you could answer this, when these guys get a permit to put the billboards on the private land, they're gonna go through, not the city, the state?
They would still have to go through the state, as I understand it.
That's
They
right.
still have to do the application process through the Department of Outdoor Advertising.
And they would have to come to the city first, is that it? Or
Right.
not at all?
Yes, we need to have our public hearings first.
Yep.
They need to be, and the recommendation needs to be sent to the Department of Outdoor Advertising.
All right, I just think, 50,000's good, that's good. But it just, to me, it cheapens the city. That's what it does.
Not to interrupt you, but Council President is correct. There was some discussion about some upfront or initial monies that were in the millions, as I recall, but I don't have any information on that, so I don't want to speak to it.
Well, I was advised that that particular company, I don't know if it's the same company that he was talking about, and they told me to watch them. They telling you they're gonna give you this, this, and this, and there's no way it's gonna happen. It's much less. So, to me, I'm just not a fan of it. I don't like it. I think it cheapens the city, and I just think there's enough, and the people in Fall River, I don't think they need more billboards. That's it, There's other things that we can do besides the billboards, so that's the way I feel. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor in seat 6, Councilor Peckham.
I just want to make a correction, and I apologize, Council Pereira. I just texted my buddy to find out what happened with that sign. It originally had broke, and it was sent to New Bedford Bulk to be repaired, and his senior class did it. It was put back up, and they sold it to the city of Boston.
Okay,
So that's just for clarification on that point.
thank you.
Paul Revere ran to Boston again.
Anything further on this resolution? Council in seat 3, Councilor Kilby.
Just a quick comment. I remember back when Ed Lambert was mayor, and he was adamantly against billboards. It was introduced initially when I was a member of the school committee in order to try to raise revenue at Jerfy High School and having Coke machines and, and different advertisements on the football fields and on the schools and different things. And I agree with him. I thought it was too much of a blight, okay? There is a cost associated with it, though, Council President. It's called aesthetics. Wanting to have a city that, our kids, I remember he would state, and I try to quote him, that our kids are inundated with enough advertising, we don't need any more. So that's just a little historic picture. And I would caution, too, we're just speaking about this for the first time in relatively, a couple of years or so. But I don't believe you can really control the message as much as we think. So if we allow billboards in our parks, on benches, and in different areas, there's only a certain limit that we can control the message that advertiser is going to try to articulate. So, we have enough of problems with alcohol. We have enough of problems with tobacco and other things that I think just send the wrong message to children. So, with that, I yield.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor in seat 2, Councilor Dion.
I'm not really sure what made this pop into my head, but how much money does Robert Kraft make every year by his stadium being called Gillette Stadium?
I have no idea, but probably a lot.
I'm sure it's a significant amount. So is there such thing, or is there a path that we can go down that we could have companies vie to have their name on the buildings, even if it required changing the name of a building, so that they would pay to have the right to have a building name in their name, similar to what they do at Gillette Stadium?
Mm-hmm.
Just throwing it out there, it just popped in my head, and
We can ask Corporation Counsel.
I
I don't have an answer.
don't think he does either right now. But it's worth, I think the purpose, I don't want to lose sight of the purpose of the resolution, right? So the purpose of the resolution is to see what we could do to possibly see if we have any assets available that we could leverage for advertising in an aesthetic manner that is appealing to the community, that we may have overlooked or we don't have, that would work well with the assets that we have. And I commend our colleague in the council for adopting this last time to see where we can go, but it's worthy of a discussion. If nothing comes out of it, it's okay, but you don't know, you don't know. Councilor in seat 5, Councilor Lee.
To your point, to stick to the resolution itself and to see if there are certain properties, maybe just bouncing a little bit off of what Councilor Kilby said, maybe what we can do to try to mitigate the gaudiness of the situation is make it open to local Fall River businesses rather than the large, oversized, big corporate ones that can make it gaudy or a blight. But if you have a lot of local businesses that probably wouldn't mind seeing their advertisements on some of the smaller properties or smaller areas of the city, and it might be beneficial, and also, it would be more accepted maybe by the neighborhoods if it was something from a local standpoint rather than from a large scale standpoint. I yield.
Thank you. We got to get back to the drawing board and see if there's potential here. I think that's what our biggest consensus is, and we got to respect, obviously, the position that Councilor Kilby, Pelletier, and Pereira had with the aesthetics. So let's put our heads together. It was a worthy discussion. Let's see if we can get anything out of it. I
Motion
guess.
to table?
Motion to table has been
Second.
made by Councilor Kilby, seconded by Councilor Peckham. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Next item on our agenda, Committee on Finance convene with Corporation Counsel and a representative of the administration to discuss procedures for removal and appointment of board members. It was adopted on September 8th, 2020. Corporation Counsel?
Yeah, Mr. President?
Absolutely. Council seat 3, Councilor Kilby.
Before we begin, I would just ask Corporation Counsel if he thinks it's appropriate to discuss this based on the letter that received and potential litigation that may be filed against us, whether it prejudices your office or in any way, shape, way, or fashion.
No, I appreciate the question, and in many cases, I would answer would. This one, I think it's okay. The worst-case scenario is not so bad on this one, so I think with all the questions, it's probably best that we just try to put a resolution to it, put it in today.
I'm sorry,
I was
Attorney
gonna
Ramsey,
say
I
the
can't hear you.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I'm fine with answering the questions and giving a quick overview of my opinion on this and this issue. Although sometimes once somebody lawyers up, it's better not to. So I do appreciate the question, but I think it's okay in this instance.
Okay, thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Counselor. Attorney Ramsey, you want to begin with an introduction and?
Sure. So everybody's aware, I issued an opinion in reference to the Park Board August 3rd of this year. I've reviewed the letter submitted by Ms. Yinkin and reviewed my letter after reading that to see if somehow it would change my opinion. The short answer, it does not. Here's what it comes down to, and I'll try to simplify this as much as possible. Keep in mind that Ms. Yinkin's opinion is biased. It's one-sided. It's not intended to be comprehensive like my opinion when it tried to be. But in a nutshell, there's a couple points I want to make. One, the opinion, Ms. Yinkin's opinion, the entire opinion is flawed because it's predicated upon the belief that Ms. Yinkin was removed within a term. If you look at I know we use the term in common sense, the term, with many different definitions, but the legal term is a fixed period of time. Now, the Park Board, I'm not sure it's been set up properly for decades. The way it initially was set up, or should have been set up, is a term of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 years, so that after that 5-year period, and I think it's May of every year, one person would expire, their term would expire, they could either be renewed or a new person could be appointed. That hasn't been set up that way for a long period of time. Irrelevant to the conversation, but we just keep in mind that it wasn't set up properly 3 years ago when Ms. Yinkin was appointed, okay? Now, if you look at her appointment papers, and I have a copy, I got it from the clerk's office, there was no term for Ms. Yinkin. So right there, the entire argument she made is that the mayor doesn't have the authority, as the appointed authority, does not have the power to remove her because she's within a term. She's not within a term. And, you know, if I understand you could make the argument that because she had no term, she's within a term indefinitely. And I think that's incorrect for a number of reasons. One is the legal definition, but let's look at this. I don't think Ms. Yinkin herself believes that. Why do I say that? Because the Park Board voted to give themselves terms. Why would they vote to give themselves terms if they believed that this city council gave them a term or the mayor gave them a term? She was appointed, she was confirmed by the city council, and she swore an oath and she signed in no term. And as you know, the Park Board does not have the authority to grant themselves terms. That's a nullity. That's like it didn't exist. But I mean, as I said before, why attempt to vote to give yourself a term if you thought you actually had one? So then we go into, you know, this.
Councilman seat one. Your point of information.
Just before Corporation Council gets too far down the line, just in terms of the term, so you were saying it was silent, the term was silent on the appointment letter?
That's correct.
Just so I'm clear while we're going through this, if the appointment letter did or was not silent, then she could not be removed, is that?
Well, that would be the second part of my argument.
Okay, all right.
I will
No,
say
away
this.
from
No, I'll
the-
admit, it's a stronger case on her point, but I would still disagree with it.
Okay. So then, I guess my second question to that, and I'll just let you continue. If an appointment letter does not have a term, would it be unrealistic in a court of law to assume that the term that's outlined either in city ordinance or MGL would apply to that individual?
No, I understand the argument, and I think that's the argument Ms. Yenkin's trying to
Okay.
make, which is if it's silent, then it's 5 years. I don't think there's any authority for that. In fact, specifically in this case, when the board just affirmed people at 1, 2, I don't know, we just recently fixed this so that everybody would be staggered the way it should have been set up. We didn't give them a 5-year term, many of the people. I think Mr. Sylvia, I believe, got a 1-year term, which was necessary to set it up properly in the future.
For the staggering?
So, and I understand the argument, I just don't think it carries the day.
Okay. That was a point of information.
Just one more point of information before you go on. When did they vote to give, I know that their vote doesn't count as actual terms, but when did they vote to do that?
I don't know, and I don't have any documents in front of me, but I've heard it from more than one source. I probably should have stated, and not even 100% on that, but that's my understanding, is that they took a vote to give
Madam
themselves
Clerk,
terms.
do you have information?
I
on
believe it was 2019.
that? They voted to give themselves terms in 2019. Okay, thank you, I yield.
Okay, so the second argument is, in my opinion, even if the term existed, that the mayor still has the power to remove somebody that they appointed. Now, the power to, general rule is the power to appoint includes the power to remove. So Ms. Yenkin has cited numerous times Mass General Laws, Chapter 45, Section 2, which gives the city council the power to remove with a 2/3 vote. But then the letter, if you look at it, goes on to say, I'll quote it here for you here. In the course of my review and research, I found no other references to the mayor's authority to remove commissioners prior to the expiration of the terms. This is after referring to Chapter 45, Section 2. Well, the case law, which I cited, yes, it was a Plan A, the case law, but it specifically addressed this exact issue. So to suggest they haven't come across any kind of reference that allows this, the suggestion that this 2/3 vote is exclusive is just absolutely incorrect. The case law, which I cited and attached to my prior opinion, which is Kazminski versus the Mayor of Springfield, was exactly the same issue with one exception, whether it's a Plan A versus a home rule charter. We're obviously under a home rule charter. But the point that Ms. Yenkin is saying is invalidated is 100% on all fours, which is, in that case, the court said, yes, we understand it's a 2/3 vote of city council, but the mayor can remove. The mayor's the appointing authority. The mayor can remove, and said that the city council was the additional power here, not that it was the exclusive power here. Finally, in kind of the third part here, Ms. Yenkin's letter discusses Section 10.1 of the Charter. And what Section 10.1 of the Charter, what it references is the transition provisions. In fact, it's under Article 10 entitled Transition Provisions. And in here, in Section 10.1, it's basically acknowledging that there may be some aspects of the law that the Charter doesn't address. And what it says, and I'll read it, well, all general laws, special laws, city ordinances, and rules and regulations of or pertaining to Fall River, and then it goes on to say, that are in force when this charter takes effect and not specifically or by implication repealed by this charter, shall continue in full force and effect. So Ms. Yenkin's letter suggests that, actually says, nowhere in the charter does it discuss that the mayor has the power to remove. Doesn't suggest that the city council has the power to remove either. That's Mass General Law. But by Ms. Yenkin's rationale that this Section 10.1 repeals by implication. Nothing in the charter repeals by implication the appointing authority. It's not really the mayor, it's the appointing authority's power to remove. And I think if anything, Section 10.1 supports what I said all along, which is there's nothing specifically repealing the mayor's ability, the appointing authority's ability to remove somebody that's appointed. So, I mean, for those arguments, I think the letter is biased, it's not accurate, and I stand 100% behind the opinion I wrote previously.
Thank you. Councilor in seat 2, Councilor Dion.
Good evening. So, first of all, I would like to say that, and I have it, and I just had it here a second ago, that for my part, and I've always said this right from the beginning, for me, it's the process, it's the procedure, it's the way the park board has been set up for the last 36 years. We haven't had it right in 36 years. And I don't think changing the rules makes it right. I think the only way you make it right is doing it the way Mass General Law stated it should have been done to begin with. And I would just like to read here, and we're going to be, this is from our own minutes, where it states that I wouldn't be supporting the appointments due to the inconsistencies in the manner that they are being appointed. She then stated that her non-support has nothing to do with the candidates or their qualifications. So I just want to reiterate that, and just so people understand, this has nothing to do with personalities or people. It's strictly procedure, what's correct, and what I think is not correct. So with that, I'm going to ask, Mass General Law states that when a mayor makes an appointment, The appointment is for a period of 5 years. So, would you then assume that it should be a 5-year appointment? It's clearly stated here. Let's see. The mayor of a city may, with the approval of the city council, appoint a park board. A board of park commissioners for said city consisting of 5 persons who shall hold office for terms of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 years respectively, from the first Monday in May, next following such appointment, or until their successors are qualified. And thereafter, the mayor shall annually, before the first Monday in May, with like approval, appoint one such commissioner for a term of 5 years from said first Monday in May. I know I'm not an attorney. I'm not arguing. I just want clarification. So this tells me that anybody that's appointed, when they if they're replacing somebody, it's a 5-year term. I could be incorrect on that. My second point is.
Would you, just so I don't forget, you
Yep,
want me to
go
address
ahead.
the first point?
Sure.
Well, I mean, I think the overall assertion that the mayor's appointment is for 5 years is incorrect. I mean, the first thing you read is that it should be set up at 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 to get it going properly, and then thereafter it would be for 5 years. So right there, I mean, it's inconsistent to say that it's automatically a 5-year term. And as far as the other issue, I'm not sure how long the park board has been improperly set up. You say 36 years, that's fine. I've no reason to believe or disbelieve.
1986.
But it is set up
34
properly
years.
now. This new administration's been here since January, and it's set up properly now. They're all now within the staggered 5-year terms. Every May, somebody's going to come up for either reappointment or a new appointment. It's set up properly now. And you keep saying it's not set up. It is set up properly now. It hasn't been, but it is now.
So do you consider that Ms. Yitkin did or did not have a term?
She did not have a term. A
She did
term
not-
is for a fixed period of time.
So if she didn't have a term, she wouldn't need to be replaced. In other words, somebody could just be appointed because she doesn't technically have a term, therefore she doesn't have to be replaced. Somebody can just be appointed to the board?
I don't understand the question.
All right. I guess my question comes from, when the appointments were made, one of the people who was appointed, who received, coincidentally, the 5-year term, replaced Marcy Yitkin. Why would she be replaced if she didn't have a term?
She was just replaced because the mayor wanted to replace her. It wasn't a timing issue.
And
Or,
co-
the
and
mayor
coincidentally,
chose
that
to.
particular person received the 5-year term.
That's inconsequential to the issue, I think. I mean, I don't know why the mayor chose to replace her. I mean, the issue before me is simply whether he had the authority to do so.
Okay. Now,
So is this safe to say, Attorney Rumsey, that if somebody doesn't have a term specific, they're considered at will to the mayor?
If the mayor was the appointed authority, yes.
Right, or whatever body that is, whether it's the council or the mayor, whoever appointed the individual, if there's no specific term, then they're at will and the mayor could remove, or whoever appointed the individual to whatever board can remove at any point.
That's correct.
Okay, and I just want to make it clear and fair that these are all brand-new developments. So I know Councilor Dion filed this resolution in the early stages, and we're all starting to put these pieces together now, so I appreciate the conversation and the debate. I just wanted to make sure we didn't lose sight of what the actual question was. If the mayor or council appoints an individual and there's no specific said term on the appointment letter when sworn in at the city clerk's office, they're considered at will to whatever respective body they are assigned to. Is that correct, Attorney Rumsey?
That's correct.
And can be removed at any point by the appointing authority.
That's correct.
So
And that's
even on
Mass
that
General
note-
Law, or is that city ordinance? Where does that come
Well,
from?
Mass General Law gives them a term. That's where I get confused
Right.
with this. There's no at-will in Mass General Law. Each person specifically has a term and a termination date, so to speak, or an expiration date. I don't know how you would phrase it. And then my other concern, again, is when you mention the Type A charter versus the Home Rule Charter. Clearly, it states the mayor acted under General Law 43, 52, and 54, which are a part of Springfield's Plan A charter. We don't have a Plan A charter.
Okay,
So how
but you
can their
just-
charter apply to our home rule charter when they're two totally different charters? How is
Because-
that applicable?
Because they're talking about on, get the exact case law here. Chapter 45, Section 2 isn't part of their charter, that's Mass General Laws.
Correct.
So in the case that I cited, the case that I gave you a copy of, it was almost exactly the same scenario. The only difference was that it was a Plan A charter versus a home rule charter. But what that case stands for, for our purposes, is that Chapter 45, Section 2 is the two-thirds vote of city council can remove. And the court said, and the mayor still can. The mayor still can.
Under
That-
the Plan A charter.
Chapter 45, Section 2 isn't from a charter, that's general laws, it's Mass General Laws.
Correct. But in your case law,
Okay.
the presentation you gave us, this states that this is what gave that mayor the authority, was the Chapter A charter.
No, well, what it
Plan A
says
charter.
is that in a Plan A charter, form of government, that the mayor has the ability to appoint. And Plan A doesn't have doesn't need the city council to approve his appointments. He has the unilateral ability to appoint members to the park board.
But under our home rule charter,
The only
the
thing
city
you
council
changed in
has to
reference
approve the appointment.
That's correct. So as far as this issue, the only thing the home rule charter changed, as opposed to a Plan A charter, is that the city council gets to approve appointments to the park board. That,
To
by
all
my
boards,
interpretation, I think any
almost.
reasonable interpretation does not repeal the power of the appointing authority to also have the authority to remove. That's not repealed by implication.
And I find
Point
it
of
interesting.
information.
Your point of
Just-
information.
Just trying to provide some clarity. I think what's important to recognize is that while a Plan A charter is different than a home rule charter, a home rule charter is based on a Plan A charter, right? So the Plan A charter identifies what the form of government's going to be. So it's the mayor as the executive officer and then the city council. You go to Plan B and it tells you how many city councilors you're going to have and things of that nature. Where you go to Plan B, C, D, and I think that goes all the way to E, it changes. So it'd be a town manager form of government or, board of selectmen form of government. And so in the case law, I think that the only difference, the important piece is that our home rule charter, as the attorney had just mentioned, was really that the council is just ratifying the appointments. And that's the only difference.
And absolutely correct. But to elaborate on that, I mean, this section 10.1 entitled Continuation of Existing Laws, it takes note that there could be some things that the charter doesn't address. And it says the existing law stays put unless it's repealed. I don't think it's repealed by implication. There's nothing in the home rule charter that repeals this. I think it's a stretch to suggest that, the ability of the mayor to, that there's anything in the charter that repeals the mayor's ability to remove somebody that he appointed.
Okay, with that, I yield.
Thank you. Counselor in seat 6, Counselor Peckham.
Okay, excuse me. I also agree with Council Dion. I'm looking at 45-2, and it says that once appointed, they shall be appointed to a term of 1, 3, excuse me, I'm having trouble seeing it, up to 5 years. So I know it wasn't this administration that appointed Ms. Itkin. I would like to know why there wasn't a term limit put on there. Question I have is, when it pertains to the park board, isn't our charter flawed anyway? With
Isn't
the
our
amount-
charter what?
Flawed, where it says we can have up to 7 park board members.
Point of order, that was an ordinance and it was incorrect.
It was incorrect.
Matter of fact, that they went back in 2008 and redid that and still
Okay.
left the 7-member board, but by Mass General Law, it can only be a 5-member board.
That's why I was questioning it.
Right, so we fixed that as well.
Okay. I'll yield because that's the question I have, and I know Council Dion's very in-depth with this.
Attorney Ramsey, when you say we fixed it, did it get sent down to ordinance and passed through ordinance?
I know there are 5 park board members now. And frankly, I'm not sure if it has been fixed in ordinance as of yet.
Okay, so you want to check with that and check with the clerk to see how the ordinance reads, and if there's necessary changes that need to be made as a result of the resolution that we need to change an ordinance, the ordinance committee could take that up.
Mr. President, I think that's already in council. Council Pereira gave the ordinance committee a list of boards and committees that needed to be addressed, and that was one of them that's currently there.
Okay, I didn't remember, I apologize, but Councilman
No,
Seday?
I did give it, and just like somebody who was here earlier at the Public Safety Committee meeting, talked about the police board and the fire board.
Okay.
That has not come to ordinance committee yet.
Okay,
But when
so-
it does, it
so
will
is the
be
purpose of the
addressed.
resolution-
It did go to ordinance, and it is with Attorney Rumsey looking over committee by committee to
Okay.
make the changes. And then it'll go back to ordinance and.
So
we'll
the,
have it,
so
but we're
Attorney
working
Rumsey,
on it.
as a result of your resolution, will be sending communications down to the city council to change anything that needs to be changed in each individual board?
That's
Is that
correct.
what
I
I'm
think
gathering?
Councilor Pereira is correct. I think it's already, the process has already started.
Great. Councilor in seat one, Councilor Kadim.
Thank you, Mr. President. Corporation Council, I guess I'm indifferent to the issue, to be quite honest with you. I agree with some of your arguments, and there are other arguments that I don't know that I wholeheartedly agree with. The first that I absolutely agree with is if you're an appointing authority, then you should have the ability to unappoint. That, to me, only makes sense, right? It's the most logic conclusion one can make unless it's otherwise defined. So I would agree with that. But in terms of what Councilor Dion brought up, you know, and the question that I had asked for clarification was whether or not if it was silent, what the assumption would be. I would think that anytime that an administration or the mayor would send something down without a term limit, the assumption would have to be, within reason, is whatever has been identified, obviously, in ordinance, Massachusetts general law, or some other document that obviously has some legality to it. That being said, I think this is where I'm trying to get some clarification on, because I had asked the question, if we assumed that the individual had a term of 5 years, and even though it wasn't stated, would that individual really have a case in terms of what she is stating? And you said it could be a stronger case. So can you elaborate a little bit on that? So if I go on the assumption that the administration comes down, the appointment letter has no defined term date, and I'm of the understanding that it's going to be a 5-year period. Is she still within that 5-year period of the appointment letter?
I think hers was probably about 3 years from when
Okay.
she was appointed. Let's see.
2018, 2 years ago.
So if one was to say that assumption is accurate, that we assume a 5-year, are you saying that the mayor still would not have had the authority to have her removed?
No, in fact, that's why I wrote the opinion letter the way I did. I put assuming she was within her term. The mayor still has the authority to remove her.
Would that require?
Because I knew that issue
Yep.
would come up.
Would that require ratification or a hearing before the city council?
I don't believe so. I think I would recommend a detailed letter as to the rationale, just to resolve any arguments before they begin. I mean, it gets complicated, and the short answer is, it depends on whether or not a property right exists.
Mm-hmm.
When you put money involved, clearly a property right exists. So there are issues when money's involved. When it's a term where there's no pay, it's voluntary, I still believe that the mayor, the appointed authority, has the power to remove. I would highly suggest that they do put the reasons in writing. But, as I said, that would be more just thinking ahead, trying to avoid issues in the future.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. And just in terms of, and just to elaborate a little bit more, so I know you're saying we can't assume the 5 years because it wasn't set up properly, but I think the average person would have assumed back in 1986 or 84 or whatever year it was, that the staggered terms were initiated properly, right? So you'd have that 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year.
It's a fair
5-year
argument.
term.
I just want to point out from the clerk's office, there's
Mm-hmm.
there's a place there where it says date term expires. Had the clerk just written 5 years down the road, I
Yep.
think it's a much stronger argument. We'd be arguing whether or not the clerk had the authority to do so, but it's remained open. I mean, it was clear that there wasn't a term in this case.
Okay, so, but just following that logic, so if, and I would agree with you, I think anybody that was over a 5-year and they're still serving there, they're essentially just a carryover until somebody gets appointed, and I would make the argument they could be removed. But I think if an individual is 3 years, the assumption is that they had a 5-year term, and then it, in my opinion, I guess it comes down to, to the opinion that you just stated, whether or not the mayor has the authority to go ahead and remove without council approval and things of that nature, so I think I'd be a little bit more interested to see on a little bit more of your legal opinion in terms of why it wouldn't need a council approval.
That's where I would probably, I don't want to make other people's arguments for them.
No, I
I'm
recognize that.
100%
I'm not asking for that.
No,
right
no,
now,
I'm
yeah.
saying, yeah, right, and I understand that this issue could come up in other circumstances in the future. It's why I wrote the opinion the way I did, which is I didn't even discuss that she was outside her term. I wrote that even within her term, the mayor has the authority. I do believe that she had no term, though.
Okay. With that, I yield. Thank you.
Anything further? Council seat 4, Council Vice President LeBeau.
Just a question. Some of the members that have been on there a long time, Mr. Sylvia and Mr. Schulenberg, did they have terms? They didn't. And it wasn't assumed a 5-year term, Madam Clerk? So those never came in front of us for a reappointment. They just stayed forever. So in that case.
Point of order?
Yes.
Jeff Sylvia did come before us.
When?
I have it right
Just
here.
recently, though,
Recently.
correct?
Just recently.
But he's been on for,
He's been on
Like
since
a decade.
1996.
right. So in that case.
Mr. Schulenberg was removed when Marcia Yitkin was removed,
Right, but he's been on a very long time as well.
since 2008.
So my point is.
Well, 2008.
If their term was assumed to be 5 years, by the same logic, they would have had to come in front of us for reappointment, correct?
Correct.
And they didn't.
Right.
So they've just been on with no term.
As at-will board members, basically.
And when they were first put on, there was no term limit given at all.
Right.
Okay. Council Dion and I have talked multiple times about this, about just the process. There were so many things that happen in the city that the process isn't followed. So in this case and in other cases, we want to make sure that it is being followed. It's not the people involved or the names on reappointments or people being taken off so much as a process being followed. You said that it has now been corrected. So can you just explain that?
What I mean by that was there were, according to the document I got from the clerk's office, there are 3 members. Well, first of all, now the park board is officially 5 members.
Mhm.
It may not be changed in the city ordinances just yet.
Right.
But the idea is that the city ordinance will be changed to comply with Mass General laws, which makes it a board of 5. So the current mayor chose not to appoint 7 members like had been in the past. The second step the mayor did was he reappointed, looks like 3 members and gave them staggered appointment dates. So now, as I said, in May of every year, I believe a park board member's 5-year term will expire. Well, it's obviously some is 1, 2, 3 right now, but it's at one point, every year, one person will expire. And from here on out, the term should be 5 years.
So the 2 people that were approved to replace Mr. Gitkin and Mr. Schulenberg, they were given terms, and then there was a correction made on those 3, the additional 3, so now they all have staggered.
I believe they're all staggered now. I can show you the sheet from the clerk's office, which to make
No,
it
I just,
clarify.
no, that's fine. As long as,
They all expired in May right now, it looks like.
and 1 a year for 5 years.
Correct.
So, did I just make the reverse argument that if Mr. Sylvia and Mr. Schulenberg didn't have a term, then the Mass General law wouldn't have been an assumed 5-year term?
What's the question?
Mr. Sylvia and Mr. Schulenberg they didn't have a term when they've been on for decades, and they never came in front of us for a reappointment. So had the 5 years been assumed by Mass General law, they would have had to come in front of us for reappointment at a 5-year mark, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. I yield.
Thank you, Counselor in seat 5, Counselor Lee.
I from the beginning, I agreed that with the first assessment that the mayor had the authority to remove the person. However, I'm worried, I'm more concerned about, were they singled out? Because it seems as though the mayor had the ability to remove any of these people that were over these terms, but he chose to remove these two. Am I wrong on that?
I have no idea. I don't know the reasons why people were appointed or removed.
Because I think with the with the way that things were they were really messed up in the beginning, it just seems as though there was not a singling out almost, because in her situation, in Marcy's situation, she wasn't there as long as some of these other people were, but she got removed while other people were given terms. So I'm just wondering if maybe she was singled out instead of not having the authority to necessarily remove her, but was she singled out instead?
I have no idea. I mean, I was asked whether it should be 5 or 7 members and whether or not the mayor has the authority to remove.
All right, because, I mean, I guess there are laws involved in removing people, unjustly, but I don't know if it's applicable in a situation, but it does seem as though that's the problem. I think that's probably the main issue, is that they were singled out in this situation. Feels like it, so that I yield.
Thank you. Anything further? Hearing no further action. Counselor in seat 4, Counselor Vice President.
If a revote was taken on this, what exactly would that accomplish? Would he then just send the same 5 people back down with those same 5 terms?
Those people are in.
I don't want to speak for the mayor. I don't know, but I think it's been done.
So
They're
if-
removed. They're no longer, the 2 people that removed are no longer members of the park board, and
Right, but if somebody on the
people
on the
that got
prevailing-
appointed are now members of the park board. I
But
don't
if
know.
somebody on the prevailing side made a motion to reconsider, and that vote was taken back,
That's ridiculous.
what would then happen? I'm just asking a question, Counselor.
I haven't looked into it, but my gut reaction is you can't unring the bell. I mean, the only way that would happen is if,
Well,
There's-
But it would put those people back on the park board, and then the paperwork would come down to take them off again and put everyone in terms?
I mean, it's done. I'm not sure what you're getting at.
I yield for now.
Counselor in seat 2, Counselor Dion.
So I kind of have a question here in terms of, so we've made, so it seems that the only consistency since 1986 has been the inconsistencies involved. And now we've made changes, we've made corrections, we've done all kinds of things, but nothing has, except for the appointments, nothing went before the council, nothing went to ordinance, no changes have been made in ordinance. Ordinance still doesn't comply with Mass General Law. Shouldn't there have been, again, a process, something, so that we went from point A to point D, as opposed to jumping all over the place and not even being sure if we're comfortable with the way everything happened?
I think you're in the middle of the process. I think what you're describing is exactly what's happening. Where Corporation Council was asked to look at how many members should be a part of the park board. I gave an opinion, it should be 5. We're in the process now of changing our ordinance to comply with Mass General laws. I was asked to give my opinion on whether or not certain people can be removed. I gave that opinion. I'm 100% confident that we're correct and we're accurate, and this is the process. This is exactly what you're going to look at, and once the ordinance is officially changed, and say, that worked properly. That's exactly how government should function. Mistakes were found, mistakes were corrected.
Okay, I guess I just feel like the horse is behind the cart instead of in front of it. But with that, I yield. Thank you.
Counselor in seat 1, Counselor Kadim.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to, I guess, elaborate a little bit on Counselor in seat 4's original, well, I guess her line of question at the very end in terms of a reconsideration for a vote. what I was going to request, and I think the only way you can get a reconsideration of the vote for the appointment would be, and this is what I'm requesting as a legal opinion.
I think I know where you're going.
Is the logic that we just stated was if the appointing authority has the ability to appoint, logic would say that he has the ability to unappoint. And if the charter says that it requires 2/3 vote of the council to appoint for ratification, one would also argue that it would take 2/3 vote of the council to remove somebody who has been appointed that wasn't within the 5 years. So I would just ask for your opinion as to whether or not the council should have, at the time of the mayor's decision to not appoint or remove the appointment of the park board member that we're talking about, would that have required a vote of the council to have that individual removed? So very similar, if he wanted to appoint, that appointment would come down to the city council, would require for us to take a vote and ratify it. Does that process still have to continue to have somebody removed?
Point of order. The 2/3 vote isn't in the charter, it's in Mass General Law,
Oh, what?
so.
Right. I think you just reworded the original issue. I mean, if you require 2/3 of the city council, that's a separate, distinct issue. In fact, there's how you unring the bell. You can vote 2/3 to get rid of everybody. Now, it's going to be the mayor who is the appointed authority to put whatever members back, which leads us back to square one. I don't know what the mayor will or will not do, but in theory, the mayor could appoint the same 5 people again.
I guess that.
Is that what you were getting at?
Yes.
No, so I guess what I'm stating is that I'm not suggesting that the city council has the authority to unappoint somebody. What I'm saying is that we would have to ratify the removal of someone. So I guess the way we could ring the bell back is to say that the process wasn't properly followed in terms of, yes, the mayor has the authority to go ahead and remove somebody, but it never came down to the city council to take an actual vote for the removal of that individual who had already received approval from the city council for an appointment by a prior administration.
Right, and I don't think the city council approval of the mayor's decision to remove is required. Similar, and it's an easier issue for the city council, but similarly, if there's a 2/3 vote of city council, the mayor doesn't have to approve of that.
So how's that, I guess, how would that be different than if the mayor is required to get council approval to appoint somebody, that he wouldn't have to get the approval to unappoint somebody?
You mean like if, for example, if the mayor wanted to terminate my position as corporation counsel, it wouldn't require city council approval. It's up to the mayor. He appointed me, and I was approved by the city council.
Are you asking for a legal opinion, Counselor of Corporation Counsel?
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, I heard you ask are you asking for him to provide an additional legal opinion?
If he could, just on the
It's an
side.
example.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, not to
I'm
put
just curious,
my-
I mean, that's a good point that you raise. I mean, employment versus an appointment to a board may differ. I don't know if they carry the same.
The difference is I would have property rights.
Right.
Because I have a 2-year contract with the compensation.
All right, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor in seat 6, Counselor Peckham.
Just really quick, when Mr. Sylvia's renewal came down, I don't recall, and I apologize, was it stated on there that it was a 5-year term?
It wasn't a
I didn't think so. I think, from what I was told, he was advised that it would be revisited in May with his,
Are you talking about the recent?
Mr. Sylvia's.
I believe he's a
recent
1 year.
appointment.
He expires, Mr. Sylvia, according to this sheet, expires May 3rd, 2021. So he must have got the 1-year term.
Okay, because you had said that everybody got a 5-year.
No. Everybody's now set up.
Oh, so that'll be.
That'll be proper. One person will expire every
Okay.
May.
So his is next May.
Correct.
All right, that's what I
So,
wanted.
I mean, technically, he got less than a 1-year term.
Okay.
He expires May of '21.
So when he was appointed, he got less than a year?
Correct.
Even though 45-2 states that it should be at least a year?
The purpose of 45-2, as far as setting it up, is that every May, somebody will expire. And assuming it's set up properly, that'll be a 5-year term.
I just find it odd that one person that's appointed would be shorted time on a
Well, when the park
just
board
to-
initiated, somebody had a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5-year term to set it up. So once you screw it up, how are you going to fix it?
It's been screwed up for a while, apparently, but
Right, and now it's been fixed.
you answered my question. With that, I yield. Thank you.
Last Councilor, Councilor Kadim.
Thank you. So to your example, we don't appoint you. We're not ratifying your appointment, we're ratifying your contract. That's the difference. With that, I yield.
Thank you. Councilor, do you want to make a motion to refer this back to Corporation Council? You asked for an additional legal opinion on the premise of,
You want me to repeat it?
please.
Whether or not the city council if the requirement would be that the city council would have to take a vote to have somebody's reappointment rescinded, given the fact that we are required to take a vote on the appointment recommendation by the mayor.
That's a motion made by Councilor Kadim. Is there a seconded by Councilor Peckham? Discussion on the motion. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Is there a motion to adjourn finance?
Motion
Motion to adjourn
Second.
has been made by Councilor Pereira, seconded by Councilor Peckham. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We're going to get right to full council.
Yes.
Fall River City Council meeting will now be called to order. Madam Clerk.
Councilors Kadim?
Yes.
Dion?
Here.
Kilby?
Yes.
LaLiberte LeBeau? Lee?
Here.
Peckham?
Here.
Pelletier?
Here.
Pereira?
Here.
President Ponti?
Here, if everybody in the chamber can please rise for a moment of silent prayer.
Council
Council.
President, could I make this moment of silent prayer to our young friend Maddock, who passed away, and also to the former superintendent of schools, Rick Pavo?
Yes, thank you, Councilor. Thank you. A salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived by those present, and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. Madam Clerk, good evening.
Good evening. The first item before you is the mayor's request for the confirmation of the appointment of Renee Howiak to the Sewer Commission.
Motion to confirm the appointment has been made by Councilor Pereira, seconded by
Second.
Councilor Kilby. Discussion, Councilor in seat 2, Councilor Dion.
Yeah, I just have one question. We do, on occasion, outsource legal work to Attorney Howiak, is that correct?
That is correct, yep.
Now, is there any conflict of interest where she is at times employed by the city and being on a board, or does that have no relevance?
That's an opinion I've rendered previously. For serving on a board is not an employment position, particularly when there's no compensation.
Attorney Rumsey is saying no, in short.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor in seat 4, Council Vice President.
All set.
Hearing no further discussion, motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
You have the request for the confirmation of the reappointment of Nadilio Almeida to the Sewer Commission.
Motion.
Motion to confirm the appointment has been made by Councilor Pereira, seconded by Councilor Kilby. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
You have the communication from the mayor and an order appropriating $17,000 from the CPA undesignated fund to the, $15,000 from CPA Open Space Outdoor Recreations for the Quikasham River Rail Trail, and $2,000 from CPA Historic Resources for the Little Theater.
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt has been
Second.
made by Councilor Pereira, seconded by Councilor Dion. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Have the mayor's request and proposed ordinances changing the parking meter fees and zones.
Motion to refer to ordinance.
Motion to refer to ordinance has been made by Councilor Kilby, seconded by Councilor Peckham. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Item 5 is Attorney Matt Thomas's response to the Preservation Society with regard to the PNS agreement for the former police station.
Motion be appropriate to accept this item and place it on file.
Motion to accept and place on file.
Motion to accept and place on file has
Second.
been made by Councilor Pereira, seconded by Councilor Dion. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Have the annual report of the Fall River Public Library.
Motion
Motion
to
to
accept.
accept and place on file.
Motion to accept and place on file has been made by Councilor Pereira, seconded by Councilor Pelletier. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Committee on Ordinances and Legislation at a meeting held on September 22nd voted unanimously to recommend that the accompanying resolution be referred to Corporation Council to prepare a proposed ordinance. This was the resolution requiring trash receptacles at drive-through
Motion
establishments.
to adopt the report?
Motion to adopt and refer to
Second.
Corporation Council has been made by Councilor Kilby, seconded by Councilor Peckham. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
The Committee on Public Works and Transportation, at a meeting held on September 22nd, voted unanimously to recommend that the accompanying communication be granted leave to withdraw. This is the communication from the Department of Environmental Protection regarding the issuance of Chapter 91 waterways license.
Motion to adopt the report?
Motion to accept the report and give the item leave to withdraw has been made by Councilor Kilby.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Lee. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
The Committee on Real Estate, at a meeting held on September 29th, voted unanimously to recommend that the accompanying order be adopted with Councilor Kilby absent and not voting. This was the CPC final report.
Motion to adopt the report?
Motion to adopt has been made by Councilor Kilby, seconded by Councilor Vice President LeBeau. Discussion. Councilor in seat 8, Councilor Pereira.
I'm not going to be voting on this, because to take 54, almost $55,000 to buy land in the bioreserve, that's wetland, landlocked. I did talk to Attorney Thomas. I asked if title search had been done on this, who owned the property. He wasn't able to say who owned the property. It went back to the days and times when the property was from this oak tree to that cow to, this rock. I think that's a bunch of baloney that you don't know who owns a parcel of property. I think we had cards upstairs, but when Pam Davis was here years ago, she cleaned out that whole area, so maybe they would have been able to find it. But if it is owner unknown, then the city needs to buy it, so the water department needs to buy it to then give it to the city, so the city can get a deed. If that's what's going on, I think the state needs to look at this. I did get a map, and you will see where it is if the camera can zoom up, where the red square is. If it's wetland, why would we buy it? We're not gonna let anybody build there. And if it's owner unknown, it's still gonna be protected. I don't know. I'm not voting for it, everybody else can, but I am just adamant with my feeling of water department land. And I did, in one of the resolutions that I have, I don't even know if it's for tonight, they are doing some good things. Mr. Labasi has done some really good things with trails that I don't think a lot of people know about. But if anybody wants to see this, pass it down, you can see it. I just think it's ludicrous that the city has the land, it's there, we don't know who the owners are, but you valued the taxes from 2008 to 9 to be $55,000. So you're taking that from CPA, which probably could have been used someplace else, to buy a piece of wetland. That can't be used for anything. But they did say it could be used for trails. Maybe it can if you wear boots, I don't know. But with that, I yield. You've heard my piece, and everybody vote the way you want. Roll call.
Councilor in seat 7, Councilor Pelletier.
Just to say that the 54.9 that we're getting for it is going in the general fund after. So, I think it's a win for our side that the money's coming over. I know we own it, the CPA's coming the money, they got the money, it's gonna be turned over to the city, as far as I understand, so I think it's just the right thing to do.
I think it would be appropriate, Councilor, because some councilors that are a little confused about what's happening and may not have tuned into the Committee on Real Estate meeting. Can we have a motion to waive the rules for
Motion.
Mr. Ferlin to come and give us a brief
Second.
review? Motion to waive the rules has been
Emphasis
made
on
by
brief.
Council. Whoa.
I'm sorry.
Motion to waive the rules has been made by Councilor Pelletier, seconded by Councilor Kilby. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Ferlin, come on down to the table.
Can we also have Mrs. Sahadi?
Sure.
Thank you.
Social
Do we have to
distance.
waive the rules for her?
No, we waived the rules.
Okay.
Mr. Ferlin, to Councilor Pelletier and Pereira's point, could you elaborate a little bit on what's happening as well for the community?
Yes, so these 3 parcels are owned, they're in the possession of the tax title possession of the city. So they've already gone through the Massachusetts State Land Court, They've already been deemed through land court that as an owner unknown and been given to the city through a foreclosure process because of back taxes that were paid by the, not paid by the owner unknown. The amount of the purchase price of $54,900, well, that's what the CPC grant is. The purchase price is still,
The purchase price is what?
the purchase price, again, isn't defined. The grant from CPC for the purchase of these properties is $54,900. So that's what is being voted on, is the grant from CPC to purchase these lands.
Mr. Furlan,
point of-
just
point
so
of-
I don't lose track and the community's confused, who's the buyer and who's the seller?
So,
Can I get just a point of order, information? just
Sure,
on top
right
of
after
that?
he answers that question, if you can.
Well, if he when he answers that question, can he also just
I lost your train of thought, I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
Who's the
Answer
buyer?
the question first. I'll get it.
so the buyer would be the City of
Oh, I
Fall
got
River
it.
Water Department. It would go under their protection. And the seller is the City of Fall River possession of tax title properties.
Counselor in seat one?
So my question was: is the 54,000 just what was owed in back taxes? Does that cover the?
What was owed in back taxes?
So and then it's essentially moving the CPC funds to actually cover the loss that we've had in tax revenue.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
So
Is
through,
it-
Thank you.
I'm sorry, that property's already been foreclosed on,
Okay.
and it's in the custodian of the city.
Okay, so clarify that one more time again, Mr. Furlan. The buyer is who and the seller is who, please?
so the buyer would be the City of Fall River Water Department, and the seller would be the City of Fall River
General fund.
General,
Say general fund.
general fund.
And you're utilizing the funds to purchase this property from a grant by CPC?
Yes. So
You're not
those-
using any general fund money?
No general fund money, correct. There is, the reason that we do have to purchase the property and they can't just be transferred over is by following Chapter 30B under new Massachusetts general law. Intergovernmental transfers cannot be done. You either need to go by the appraised value or the assessed value. So that's what the basis of the grant was based on, was the assessed value, that the value of the assessor has. The state did determine these as low-value lands. That's why the price of them is so low per acre. Just in relation to the land, they're not all wet. There is uplands, there is downlands within those three lots. It is adjacent, surrounded on three sides by land that's owned by the Massachusetts, the Commonwealth of Mass, DCR, and the Greater Fall River Land Conservancy, which I think has now dissolved and given their land to the Buzzards Bay Coalition for conservation reasons. These are directly connected to the bioreserve and in the bioreserve area, and will be kept for conservation land along with the rest of the bioreserve area. There will be a conservation restriction through the CPC. There will be a conservation restriction that is put on these lots that do not allow any building or any future altering the sites. There are limited uses on those sites. Passive recreation is one of those uses, and that's what it would be used for.
And is that going to be purposed through the deed, a deed restriction?
Yes, that would be a conservation restriction. Coming in front of you in the future will be a conservation restriction on some prior properties that were purchased through CPC for the same reason. Those conservation restrictions are being held by Buzzards Bay Conservation, Buzzards Bay Commission, which is a conservation agency. We have talked to them about holding the conservation restrictions on this property, and they are interested in that. All the conservation restrictions that are put on these properties go through our review, law department's review, their lawyer's review, as well as the state of Massachusetts also does approve all the conservation restrictions that are put on there.
Thank you. Council Vice President LeBeau?
Whoa, I wasn't done.
Oh, I'm sorry. You have the
Do I
floor.
have still the floor?
You do. Councilor Pelletier, I apologize. It's a long time ago.
Could you explain the 54-9, how it gets back into the general fund?
Yep, so the $54,900 is given from CPC as a grant to the water department. The water department then works with the city through a purchase and sales and approval process to transfer those properties from the general fund into the water department possession. And again, as I explained, through the 30B process, there's no advertisement because it's an intergovernmental transfer. So the land would transfer to us, we would transfer the money, the CPC money over to the general fund.
And how soon do we get the check?
We got to get through
That's
this
my question.
process.
Oh, this got to come first, right?
Yes, yes.
All right. I think you're doing all right with the land, although we could put a few houses on there. But again, if we sell it for 80,000 apiece, 88,000 apiece, and then you got the lines going through there, and if something goes wrong, we're responsible. And I think this is the way to go, and we pick up 54-9. With that, I yield. Thank you.
Councilor in seat 4, Council Vice President LeBeau.
That was my question. Is the land buildable? Is it accessible on?
No, so it is landlocked land. It's
So-
surrounded by conservation, and there is one property owner on the side of it, but
So if it's surrounded by conservation and you can't really do anything with it, wouldn't it stay protected as is under the city, with the city as the owner?
well, again, it would stay protected, but there is no legal protection on it. There's no Chapter 97 protection. There is no conservation restriction that would not allow development, so.
And point of information,
And-
nor would we get the $54,000 into the city.
Right,
That
but
is- that's
CPA
correct.
is giving the $54,000, right?
Yes.
So
Indirectly, that's correct.
If
But
it's
it-
But it's not-
transferred to
but
the
it's
water
not city
department.
money.
Right.
It's taxpayers' money.
Right, if it's
Yeah.
transferred to the water department, the CPA grant was for the City of Fall River Water Department to gain the title to the property and have a conservation restriction on that property.
And not to muddy the waters, but technically, it would then be available, or is currently available for sale because it is part of the tax title property that we own.
Correct, but what can somebody do with acres of landlocked property with no access? I mean, I have 4 acres in Westport that I can't access, it's not doing me any good. It's worth about $1. Just trying to see what the train of thought is. Okay, thank you, I yield.
Anything further? Hearing none. Motion has been made to adopt and seconded. Roll call.
On adoption, Councilors Kadim?
Yes.
Dion?
Yes.
Kilby?
Yes.
Lalibity LeBeau?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Peckham?
Yes.
Pelletier?
Yes.
Pereira?
No.
President Ponti?
Yes. Next order of
Thank you.
business. Thank you very much.
I have a proposed ordinance for a stop sign intersection at Bark and Reservoir Streets.
Refer to ordinance?
Just so the council knows, this was previously denied by the Traffic Commission, but we can still refer it to ordinance if you'd like, and making sure the chair invites the traffic director to share the concerns of the Traffic Commission. Motion to refer to ordinance has been made.
Mr. President,
Councilors, seat 7?
Yeah.
What is it?
I'd like to speak.
Is there a
You'd
motion?
like
re-
to speak.
I can hear that, but is there a
Oh.
motion to refer first on the motion to refer?
Motion to refer.
Motion to refer to
Second.
ordinance has been made by Councilor Pereira, seconded by Councilor Pelletier.
Okay, go ahead.
Discussion, Councilor in seat 7, Councilor Pelletier.
All right, I've been chasing this down for about 5 months. I think it's totally ridiculous. They got a guy that lives on the corner of Box Street for 37 years, and he's been complaining, so I put a letter in to the traffic board to see if they could put a stop sign there. They went up, they surveyed it, there's no accidents in there, so they denied it, and I think they're absolutely wrong. You got the school, Diamond School, it's been there for about 40 years. And 30 years ago, you wouldn't think that a junior or a senior be driving cars. And what these juniors and seniors do, they don't like to stop at the red light. So what they do, they go up Box Street. They go up Box Street, you know, they don't go slow, they go medium, maybe, whatever the case may be. So there's one stop sign there, and for the safety reason, that there should be another stop sign there. So the board had denied it. And I don't like to go over the board You know, Laura, you know, she don't vote, she don't say I'm right or wrong, but I think it should be done for the safety of the people in the area. Four-way stop sign. It's not gonna hurt anything. And like I said, I don't like to do this, but I've done it. And I like to, I sent 2 letters in, and Paul had called, Mr. Levesque had called me, and he's still concerned. So I'm hoping this will go to ordinance, and I'm hoping that we can get the stop sign done, so my work can be done on this issue. With that, I yield.
Thank you. And if we can make sure, Madam Clerk, that those letters get to the ordinance committee as well, that Councilor Pelletier prepared, that'd be great.
Okay.
Motion to refer to ordinance has been made and seconded. Hearing no further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
The next is a proposed ordinance for passage through second reading and enrollment, and this relates to the personnel executive administrative assistant to the chief of police.
Motion for passage and enrollment?
Motion to pass through second reading and enrollment has been made by Councilor Pereira, seconded by Councilor Lee. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
And item 12 is an ordinance for passage through second reading and enrollment as amended. This is a miscellaneous traffic ordinance.
Motion.
Motion to pass through second reading and enrollment has been made by Councilor Pereira,
Second.
seconded by Councilor Dion. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Whereas construction has begun on North Main Street for the Fall River layover facility for South Coast Rail Project, and whereas a new commuter rail station will also be constructed on Duval Street, and whereas many residents are unaware of all the necessary construction needed for this project and have questions, now therefore be it resolved that Gene Fox, South Coast Rail Project Manager, be invited to a future meeting of the Committee on Public Works and Transportation to provide an overview of the major construction necessary to bring South Coast Rail to Fall River.
Is there a motion to
Motion
adopt the
to adopt.
resolution? Motion to adopt the resolution has been made by Councilor Kilby, seconded by Councilor Pelletier. Discussion of one of the sponsors of the resolution, Councilor in seat 8, Councilor Pereira.
I was going to have that go to economic development to talk about it there. I don't know who has public works and transportation, but whichever one can do the meeting quicker, because we're getting a lot of calls from people down on North Main Street with all of the old St. Vincent's home, all of the activity going on there. People thought they were building houses. People didn't know what was going on. So it depends. Who's on Public Works and Transportation?
That would be Councilor Kadim.
Council Kadim?
He chairs,
You going to be able to have a
Public
meeting
Works.
quickly? If not, I'll put it to economic development. You will?
Buy me lunch.
Pardon? By lunch?
Buy me lunch, yes.
I don't bribe people. I don't buy you lunch. But
He'll have a
Jean
quick-
Fox is willing
I
to
will.
come down, and she's got a PowerPoint, too,
Okay.
that she'll bring down.
That's fine.
I just didn't want to put in a resolution trying to push work on somebody else, that's all. With that, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Seaton.
Just Linda and I discussed this over the last couple of weeks, and we've truly been getting a lot of calls, I know
Yeah.
I have, with regard to the neighbors. I'm sure they know what's going on, but I think it'd also be healthy to get an update from Gene Fox. I think it'd be nice for the community to see, because I do see a lot of action lately, thank goodness, with regards to the rail lately. So with that, I yield.
Thank you. Hearing no further discussion, motion to adopt has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
We have applications for the renewal of auto repair shop licenses.
Motion to adopt the auto repair shop license renewals.
Motion
Motion to adopt.
Has been made by Councilor Pereira, seconded by
Second.
Councilor Peckham. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
We have an application for renewal of an auto body shop license.
Motion to renew license?
Motion to adopt the
Second.
renewal has been made by Councilor Pereira, seconded by Councilor Dion. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Have the police chief's report of licenses.
Motion to approve and adopt the police chief's report has been made by
Motion
Councilor
to
Peckham,
adopt.
seconded by Councilor Dion. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
We have a number of claims.
Motion for Corporation.
Motion to refer to Corporation Council of Claims has been made
Second.
by Councilor Kilby, seconded by Councilor Dion. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Items 18A and B are drain layer applications for RJV Construction Corporation and MRC Contracting.
Motion to adopt.
Motion to approve has
Second.
been made by Councilor Kilby, seconded by Councilor Dion. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Motion to take 19 and 21 together.
Motion to take items 19 through 21 together has been
Second.
made by Councilor Kilby, seconded by Councilor Dion. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion to accept and place on file after reading would be appropriate.
Motion so made?
By Counselor Kilby.
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Dion. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
These would be minutes of the Zoning Board of Appeals from January 16th, February 20th, and June 22nd.
Motion.
Place on file?
Motion to accept and place on file has been made by Counselor Kilby. Didn't we just do that? Yeah, we just did that. My apologies. It would be appropriate to take items 22 through 27 together.
I'll make the
Has
motion
been
to
made
do
by
that.
Counselor Dion,
Second.
seconded by Counselor Peckham. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion to approve after
Motion to
reading.
approve and put on file.
Motion to approve after reading has been made by Counselor Dion, seconded by Counselor Kilby. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
We have minutes of the regular meeting of the City Council held on August 11th, minutes of the Committee on Finance held August 24th and August 31st, special meeting of the City Council held on August 31st, joint meeting of the City Council and School Committee on August 20th, and public hearings held on September 22nd.
Motion
Item-
to accept and put
We've
that
done
place
that.
on file.
Second.
We just did that.
Oh, we just did that.
Yeah, it was after reading. Sorry for the confusion. Next order of business.
Item 28 is an
Motion to
open
place
meeting
on
law
file.
complaint.
Motion to refer to Corporation Council.
Motion to
Second.
refer to Corporation Council. The open meeting law complaint has
Second.
been made by Counselor Kadim, seconded by Counselor Lee. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Item 29 is a communication from DEP regarding Chapter 91 permit application by Liberty Utilities at 120 Charles Street.
Motion to accept and place on file
Motion to
has been made
accept,
by
place on
Counselor
file.
Kilby, seconded by Counselor Dion. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
The last item is a notice of casualty and loss to a building at 325 Bullock Street.
Motion to accept the notice of casualty and place it on file has been made by Counselor Dion, seconded by Counselor Kilby. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We're going to take a brief recess. Madam Clerk, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes,
Brief
please.
recess. 2 minutes. River City Council meeting is now back in order. Madam Clerk.
The last two items before you are the ordinances for passage through final ordination. The first for the executive administrative assistant to the police chief.
Motion to pass through all readings has been made. Final ordination has been made by
Second.
Councilor Kilby, seconded by Councilor Peckham. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
And lastly is the miscellaneous traffic for passage through final ordination as amended.
Second.
Motion to pass through final ordination as amended has been made by Councilor
Motion made.
Dion, seconded by Councilor Lee. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Madam Clerk?
That's all we have, Mr. President.
Motion to
to
adjourn has
adjourn.
been made
Second.
by Councilor Dion, seconded by Councilor Pelletier. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Good evening.